in the face of COVID, we have all been found, including ourselves who retired, we've been found in a crisis situation which has been unprecedented. If you think of the 2009 credit crunch and the aftershocks that caused most of us to have our job shakings, it was a very devastating encounter, but projections are showing that the COVID aftershock shall live with us for more than a decade, close to 2 decades on the more. Okay, so now in the face of COVID, if you want to access my books, you can only access them via Amazon. So those are my latest 3. The first one that you see is a long overdue book. I wrote this almost 5 years ago, but this is the time I'm publishing it. It really has a lot of personal insights on business, and those that have interacted with me have been passionate. I think you remember I always was passionate that when you're at the place of work, it's always important for you to prepare for unforeseen eventualities. So you can get those either electronically or you can order. So here is a crisis. You look at that and you see a real crisis. I think you know, Harold, you should know what happened there, to my amaze, and those of you in this forum that are farmers. Now, this crisis was induced by my workers. This was one of the best crop that I had, but my workers decided to go on the drinking spree, and someone in the community decided to light a fire, which burned close to 15,000 of my maize crop. So when you talk of the burning of 15,000, you're talking of maybe about $3,000 worth of revenue lost. So that is a crisis. And how do you do with such workers? Well, for me, I fired both of them because I didn't want such a crisis to occur again. But this crisis didn't break us down. You can see, if you look in the background there, you see our construction process. Because of the loss of revenue here, we had to halt. And at this time, I was still in World Vision. So it was not an easy experience for us to lose all this beautiful maize. And the part that was basically burnt was one of the best that we anticipated that when we start selling our green maize, we'll get more revenue from that. So how do you handle such a crisis? And probably we're hoping this is the money where you used to pay your builders, for example, in my case, or even the same workers that decided to go drinking instead of being at the place of work. That is a crisis. So those are crises that could be man-made, and they are avoidable. How do we avoid it? Those of you that are in disaster preparedness, you know that preparation is very important in any effort aimed at mitigating a crisis. So before I build on that, let me look at just some fact files. And as I said, you don't have to panic about writing. You have these notes. According to the World Food Program projections, the numbers of people likely to be hit by food insecurity in fuel of the coronavirus disease of 2019 would rise to 265 million. And this represents an upswing of 130 million from the 135 million figures of 2019 itself. And we know, those of us that follow news, obviously, that in the US alone, unemployment benefit filings swelled to more than 50 million by the end of July, or they would swell rather to more than 50 million. In fact, they have already bypassed that number anyway. So you're talking of people that are filing for unemployment claims, meaning people are losing jobs. So there is uncertainty and fear in view of the pending job losses. And I believe some of us on this forum are full of insecurity and fear. And that's why I came to give you this encouragement, because perfect love, the Bible says, drives out fear. So I would already say on the onset, do not be afraid. God will take care of you. There is usually a shake-up, which we all know about, but that shouldn't shake our faith up. If God is saying this is the time for you to move on, you just need to be prepared emotionally and psychologically, because there are certain events that we may not have power over, but we know that our God is always faithful. Global experts, analysts have reviewed that the global economy could be impacted by 1%, there you can see, in 2020 due to this pandemic. These are the forecasts according to the United Nations. And I think we've seen that big corporations, including airlines, tourism hubs. I'm sure you are close to Malawi. Some of you know my best hotels when I'm there. I doubt if you have people now sleeping in those hotels. Big businesses are really shaking and frantically seeking for government bailouts. So these are realities that are on the ground in the face of the coronavirus pandemic, for example. But the God we serve is always faithful. Here is another crisis. I'm sure you can see there that my builders didn't appear, because sometimes your builders will tell you, okay, we are coming this time. Then they didn't show up, but I put cement on the stones, and so there was nothing I could do but start building myself. So this is why it's important for us to prepare, and I will read a scripture later that shows the value of preparation, investing in various dimensions, so that when you face a crisis, you have something that you can fall back on. So you can see it was myself, Mrs. Msonda, our son, who was very young at the time. We had to now start something that I was honestly not prepared for, but because of the crisis, I had to undertake that. So again, another crisis there. You see Dr. Msonda building. This was another day when the builders didn't show up. But for me, I had a target. I said this agricultural conference hall must be up within a month. Francis had visited us. Actually, he came where we have built that structure that you're seeing on top, which is the one I'm building there. There was nothing. That's where the team, Francis and his team, stood when he was explaining to people how to grow sweet potatoes on my behalf. So you can see that when a crisis hits, you must find a way of navigating through a crisis, and don't relax and start weeping. Sometimes we start troubling God unnecessarily, asking him to answer by fire or by thunder, when we ourselves can take a step in the face of a crisis. And so a crisis like COVID should not cause us to relax, but at least come up with an idea where we say, where can we run to in case these ravaging effects begin to impact us beyond what we anticipated? So that is me building there. So I've made sure that I also know I have some skills of building in case my builders are not there. So you can see things have been moving from the time I left. So you see all those structures have been raised up. This one is our agricultural conference hall, which was first approved by the government, because the idea is that people that are coming to the campsite, they can already start learning. And we are working on the 7 chalets. Actually, we could have done or finished by this. As you can see, there are a lot of blocks everywhere. I made preparation that we finish quickly so that when people come, they can actually, those who want to sleep over, they can sleep. So, but anyway, those are structures that have already been done. And we are now teaching people how to grow sweet potatoes on flat land. I will not go into these teaching details, but I think it's something that it's flat land versus this one. This one also becomes a crisis. You see, we are used to planting on ridges, and you can see how destructive this method is. So this was one of my workers who made these huge unnecessary ridges. But from my own research over the past 3 or 4 years, I've discovered what you grow on flat land gives you a better yield compared to what you grow on those destructive ridges. This is the time when Francis actually from Malawi visited us, and he left a mark really through that visit. So you can see our methodology. When you plant on flat land, from one vine, you get all those. So here, from one vine, we had all those 3 big ones, which you are seeing here, just from one. So if you plant it on flat land, because the microbes actually are able to break down the food nutrients for the crop, and you have the maximum intake of food, and that's how you can have a sweet potato growing to that size. This one can weigh, just one can weigh up to 3 kilograms. And I'm very grateful to Chapotera, who actually gave me some of the vines, and also Medas. Medas actually gave me the first vines. I carried the vines from Malawi in a very small bag, and then Chapotera as well gave me the second. So I'm very grateful to the 2 colleagues who have now enabled us to have all those many vines, which we are actually selling all over the country and even beyond. So thank you, Malawi. You can see you have already the footprints in my country as well. So see how big the sweet potatoes can grow, okay? Now, to get the sweet potato to this level, it is a battle. I think most of you colleagues who have got workers working for you at the farm, you know how difficult it is to manage your workers, especially when they are working for a fellow black. It is an uphill battle. I don't know, when they're working for other light-skinned people who come as foreigners, they would be very, very honest and dedicated, but employ the same brother or sister, may God help us. So for you to get such kind of quality crops, you need to really be dedicated yourself. Remote control is not the best. I think ask Chapotera and Francis, they will tell you the disadvantages that are in remote controlled agriculture. It can be disastrous. So you can see the circumference here, almost 37 centimeters. That is how big the crops grow. This is the Malawi vine. So I'm very grateful. I'll always be grateful to Malawi for this. So this is another one. You can see the young man is even failing to lift. It's much bigger than his head. And then you have that one, which is as the length of the hand. This is how the sweet potatoes should grow if they are grown on flat land without being disturbed, without the soil being disturbed. But anyway, this is a training that we can give in detail. It's not meant for this forum. But one thing that we are doing now is we are using the same field. We plant the vines in the middle, and then what you see me planting there were the maize, the speckled maize that I got also from Burundi. So this is my work. I can see is measuring. I'm very particular about standards. So I can see here it gives you the picture. So you see there are sweet potatoes there. Then between you have a line of maize. So you can plant them. If you are using drip irrigation, you can actually plant them in the same line. So when you do your, maybe you leave 30 centimeters for the vine, another, then between the other 30 centimeters, you put your maize so that you have two crops within the same field. And that gives you at least maybe two crops on a hectare.